Cordless from glamorous Minneapolis. It's Thursday night, June 25th, 2026. I'm Jim Peters, and welcome to another edition of Jim Peters at Night. This is episode number 365. In other words, we've now done enough shows to fill up a whole year. Our guests tonight, we have two. RAINER ZITELMANn, the economist, historian, and sociologist from Germany, he's written 32 books. His latest book came out a couple of weeks ago called New Space Capitalism. We're going to talk to him about Elon Musk making money in space and a whole bunch of other stuff. And Ralph BISCEGLIA, he's the head CEO and president of the American Transit Insurance Company. And he's going to be our second guest in part three. We're going to talk about insuring New York City taxicabs. And you may not find that fascinating, but if you've ever been to New York, it's a huge business. And we've taped both of the. I asked him, "How do you make any money?" He said, "We don't," and I believe him. I do. And in the meantime, we got a Jimcast in the middle and part two, and we're going to talk about the missing scientists from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Linda Cohn's one-day catchphrase for home runs on SportsCenter. That's the game plan, folks. So here in 45 seconds. It's 45 seconds. We're gonna talk to here's RAINER ZITELMANn. The following program contains the opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Howdy ho, everybody. Come to you cordless once again from glamorous Minneapolis. It's Thursday night, June 25th, 2026. I am Jim Peters, and welcome to another edition of Jim Peters at Night. This is episode number 365, if you're keeping score at home, which means that we have enough shows to run them back-to-back for a whole year, I guess. Our main guest tonight is RAINER ZITELMANn. He's been on the show before. He's written, well, I got to ask him, this is either his 32nd or 33rd book, as books have been translated into 35 languages. He's a historian, economist, sociologist, and he joins us from Berlin with a fabulous picture because Al Gore invented the internet and it works. How you doing?
Great. I'm great. Thank you that I can be back in your show. Thank you.
I appreciate it too, very much. So I thought we had you on about 3 months ago. It was only 6 weeks ago. I checked, and yes. We had you on. So your book, the New Space Capitalism, came out a couple weeks ago. How's it doing?
Yes, it's great. I have a lot of the first great reviews, and I'm invited to lectures. I'm invited to 4 different conferences in the United States. So I will go to LA, to San Francisco, to Las Vegas, and yes, it was a good start.
Well, you wrote a book just like last year or the year before about a world tour, and we're going to talk about that because the actual reason I wanted to have you back, I don't know if you remember, is because we were talking about your previous books, and I want to talk about them too. But 2 things have happened here since your last appearance 6 weeks ago. First of all, SpaceX went public, and so yes. you have any thoughts on that at all? Making a lot of people wealthy.
No, because I think when you write books or articles about a company, and then people can think that you're biased or that there's a conflict of interest and so. And so I think for me, it's only my decision that it's better if you don't have shares in this company to make you more independent. And I'm a more passive investor, so I have a worldwide diversified ETF and real estate and So I don't buy single shares.
And so what do you think about, and this also refers to a book you wrote, let me see if I'm going to find the title here. You wrote a book in 2020 called The Rich and Public Opinion. And
yes.
I thought that was particularly prescient because of all Elon Musk, he garners up a lot of disparate opinions in the American public. And I don't know if he should, but he does. I mean, what do you think of that?
Yes. First about the book, then about Elon Musk. This is the first and only book so far about prejudice and stereotypes against rich people. And, there are thousands of books, stereotypes about black people, about gay people, about transgender people, about women, of course. And there are so many books about prejudice, but there was not a single book about prejudice and stereotypes against the rich. And this was the reason why I wrote it. And it was based on research because I conducted a poll in 13 countries about the image of wealthy people. We did it with one of the most prestigious polling institutes, Ipsos Mori, to find out how people in different countries think about rich people, what kind of stereotypes.
And you used 4 countries as examples, right?
Yes, this is correct. But later I did it more in the book. It's absolutely correct. It was only France, Germany, UK, and the United States. But now we've done it in 13 countries. We included Spain and Italy and China and South Korea, Japan, Poland, Sweden, so a lot of other countries. And the result was the most envious people. We calculated something that we called the social envy coefficient to measure how envious are people against the rich. And the highest score was in France. So in France, you find the most envious people. Number 2 is Germany, my country. And on the other end are countries like Poland or Japan, South Korea, where people are or Vietnam, where they're less envious than in a lot of European countries.
And where did the United States figure in that?
In the United States, on average, it was not so bad, the attitude, but there was a huge difference between older and younger Americans. The older Americans were very, very positive towards rich people, but the younger ones were not, on average, not negative, but much more negative if you compare it with the older one. So in no other country had we such a huge difference between younger and older people as in the United States. So,
did you personally draw any conclusions on that?
It's hard to say. Of course, some people say it's about education. It's about the university, that they're very left-leaning. But it's the same in Europe. We have also very left-leaning schools and universities. Why in the United States? And it's not that the young people are so much more negative in the United States than in Europe, but the older ones are much more positive. The older Americans, I mean older than 60, yes, they are like we think about Americans, pro-capitalism, pro-economic freedom. So this is very strong. And with the younger people, they are more like in Europe. Yes, and I don't know whether it's with the educational system, or I think it has something to do because, I don't know, what's your age, Mayor? How old are you?
I'm 70.
Okay, so we are almost the same. I'm 69. So
yeah,
we can remember the time of communism. I, of course, here in Germany, East Germany, and you remember all this stuff. But the young people, it was not their life, not their experience. The only thing, or the only way how they could know is when they learn it at school or in the university, because it's not their life, not their personal experience. When you're 30, communism was, dead everywhere. And so I think it's the distance from this experience that makes a difference. And they should learn it at school, but they don't learn it. I can give you one example. I had lectures in more than 30 countries. I traveled, this was what we're talking about in 2022, 23, 30 countries. I had lectures everywhere about this topic. And I asked everywhere where I had a lecture, have you heard about the biggest socialist experiment in history? This was Mao Zedong's so-called Great Leap Forward in China, 1958 to 1962, where 45 million people died. 45 million people. This was the biggest socialist experiment. And wherever I talked, only very few, I asked, have you heard about it at school? I said 95% no, they haven't heard about it. Only maybe 5%. Whether I spoke I've been in South Korea, I've been in Mongolia, I've been in the United States, I've been in Argentina, in Brazil, and in Chile, and in 16 European countries. And it was everywhere the same. People haven't heard about it. And if you compared, for example, if you would ask, I haven't done it, but I think so, if I would ask, have you heard about Adolf Hitler, who killed 6 million Jewish people? I hope that there are not many people in the world who haven't heard about it. I think most of the people, I hope so, heard about this. But with its 45 million victims of Mao Zedong, even, people haven't heard about it.
Rainer, do you think that maybe universities worldwide are deliberately not teaching this? Does it have something to do with a leftist agenda among the faculty?
Sure, they don't want to talk about it. If they speak about capitalism, they give you only how bad is capitalism, these things. And for example, another thing, if I ask people, do you know that 200 years ago, before capitalism, that 90% of the worldwide population lived in extreme poverty, and that it's only 10% today? Have you heard about this? No. They haven't heard about this. They don't know it. They don't know anything about history. They think capitalism is evil, and one reason is because they know zero about history. And this is the reason why I write my books. I have a lot of books like The Power of Capitalism or In Defense of Capitalism, and this is to teach the people something about history that they don't hear at school. Or university. Or if I ask, I think you remember this, with this crazy people in, how do you pronounce it in English, Cambodia? How do you pronounce it?
What?
With the Khmer Rouge.
Oh yeah, Khmer, right. Okay.
How do you pronounce the country? Cambodia.
Cambodia? Laos?
Cambodia, yes.
Yeah.
Close to Vietnam. I don't know. I only know how it's pronounced. So with its crazy communist Pol Pot, who killed I think 20% of the population only in a few years. Yes, and people haven't heard about it. They don't know anything about it, and this is a big problem. And the older ones like you and me, it was the time when we lived. We heard something about how bad it was in the Soviet Union or in East Germany. But the younger people, they don't know anything about it, and this is one reason, I think.
Well, this actually brings me up to the second thing that's happened since the last time you were on, and that was just yesterday. We're taping this on Wednesday afternoon. A whole bunch of socialists won in New York City. What the hell is that about? Is it the same that just exactly you're talking about? Is the young people come out voting and they don't know?
Yeah, and unfortunately, I was right. I tell you one thing. Now it's 9 years ago that I started to write my book, The Power of Capitalism. And this was a warning. I said I predicted we will have a comeback of socialism. And people told me, this is crazy. You're fight from the Cold War time. And who wants socialism? It's no one. Everyone knows that capitalism is better. What is this book about, sir? We don't need a book about it. And I had the feeling, no, they will come back. And this is now what happened. Not only but in New York, yes, it's the main capital of capitalism worldwide.
Yeah,
and that they wrote it for such a totally crazy Marxist. But to be honest, I know I really like America. I even thought to move there. couple of years ago. I bought an apartment in Manhattan. So and some people say I'm more American than German, but of the politicians today. So I think it's crazy. To be honest, I'm also not Donald Trump fan. I don't know whether I get problems now with some people in your audience. I don't know whether you have a lot of Donald Trump fans. I haven't thought so bad about him in his first time. He did some good things like lowering taxes, like deregulation. But now the second term, I think it's crazy. And the alternative, of course, it's even worse with the Democrats, with like Mandani in New York. So I wonder, I know so many smart people in the United States who could do it better. I think you would be, of course, better president than Trump. So
that's one of the problems. I mean, there's 340 million people here, and usually we don't choose the best person.
Yes, but you had to create president. You know, I'm a big fan of Ronald Reagan. He's, for me, in my opinion, he was really the best.
Did you say Reagan? Is that what you said?
Yeah. For me, Reagan, he was the best. He reduced taxes a lot, a great reduction, and he had a stance against Russia, against the Soviet Union. He really made America strong, and he was here in Berlin, and you know he had this on the Brandenburg Gate, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Yeah. And if you compare it with Donald Trump, he says, if you don't pay enough, I say the Russian, you can do with them what you like. So this is, of course, can you imagine how you feel? I know we made a lot of mistakes in Europe, that we didn't pay so much for our defense. At this point, he's right, and he's not the first one who says it. Every president said it. But what I don't like, to be honest, with Trump, now he has conflict with everyone, even with Netanyahu, and even with who was a big supporter from him, you know, this Italian Meloni, for example, with everyone. The only people he has no problems is, I think, Putin, Lukashenko, and Kim Jong-un. Yes, because have you seen it when he said, "Oh, have you seen Putin sent me such a nice picture, so with an autogram, and Kim Jong-un wrote me a letter, handwritten." So for me, it's ridiculous to be honest. So and not to talk about Democrats. So I don't want to go too deep in American politics. We have no better politicians here in Germany also. But I think if I compare it with the 80s, we had Ronald Reagan. We had Maggie Thatcher in the UK. I love Maggie Thatcher. We had Deng Xiaoping in China, who made these great economic reforms that brought hundreds of millions of people out of poverty.
Yeah. So hold it. Let's talk about that, because that's the thing he did. You know, we talked about this the last time you were on too, about the fact that there was a 25 year period in China where they basically, for more or less, accepted free enterprise, more or less. I mean, yes. And the country flourished. And then Xi Jinping comes in and he cuts it off. And I don't understand why they did.
Yes, you're absolutely right. So let's go a little bit back in the history of China, because I studied a lot about this. I talked about the end of the 50s with this great leap forward, and 45 million people died. And even when Mao died in the end of the 70s, 88% of people in China lived in extreme poverty, 88%. And then came Deng Xiaoping. I admire him. He started private property, economic reforms, and he spoke good about rich people. He said, let some people get rich first. And hundreds of millions of people escaped poverty in China. And today you have so many billionaires in China as in no other country, with the exception of the United States. Even, I think, 5 years ago, there were more billionaires in China as in the United States, and more billionaires, I think, in Shanghai than in Manhattan. But now this Xi Jinping, since 10 years, he goes back to more government and less market. And people in the West, they don't understand the reason of the success. I have a friend, he's professor at the Beijing University, and he's 100% pro-capitalism, free market. But for him, it's difficult today. He published his book outside China today. He was very influential in the time of Deng Xiaoping, and he explained me always, our success in China was not because of the state, but in spite of the state. We came from 100% government, and then we reduced it, more market. And this was the real reason for our success. But he told me they believe today, this Xi Jinping and his people, that they have a special third way between communism and capitalism and the Chinese way, but this is nonsense. And, they have some problems in China, and I think the real reason for these problems is that they have not enough capitalism. And if you see, for example, what happened with Jack Ma, the founder of Alibaba, he was the richest man in China. Then he became too big, and then they
president. Right.
Yes, and this is the reason, for example, why someone like Elon Musk, you can't imagine someone like him in China. And I think some people said rich people have too much power, but I think no, in a way it's good to have rich people, because it's the most dangerous thing if you have only politicians and they have all the power, the politicians.
Exactly.
And if there are some rich people who in some way or another, hopefully, and unfortunately, a lot of cases they don't do it, go also in opposition. I think Musk, he had his problems with Trump. I predicted this from the beginning. They will have a conflict, but of course, Trump is stronger now, and Musk, he has to adapt on Trump. But I don't believe 1 second that he thinks good about Trump, because he's a very smart person, I think, Elon Musk. And as an entrepreneur, 1,000 times more successful than Trump ever was, and much more intelligent. And for someone like Musk, I think it's impossible to subordinate to Trump, like they do when they are sitting there on the table. Oh, Donald Trump, I want to thank you so much what you have done for our country. I want to praise you. It sounds for me like in North Korea with Kim Jong-un, where they have to praise him and so. And can you imagine that Elon Musk maybe can do it one or two more times, but then say, this is crazy. I'm the richest man in the world. I'm much more intelligent and much more successful. And so I knew that they want to clash. Okay, then they had, now today it seems better from outside, but I don't think that they really like each other. Because I think Trump, he only likes people who subordinate to him. And I don't know, it's so too much maybe about American politics for me as a foreigner, but also I have my own thoughts, and I think that I have not a bad opinion about Bolton, for example, and Mike Pence and this people, or also Ted Cruz. Yes, I think even when Trump ran the first time in the primaries for president, it was him against Ted Cruz. I was for Ted Cruz more. I think he would be much better. So Ted Cruz. And I have seen the polls now. I think because of this Iran war, I'm not totally against the Iran war, but then you have to bring it to an end. And now he can bring it to the end because Americans don't like it. Gas prices go up, inflation goes up, and for Iran it's perfect. Now they can, I think they won the war in a way, and of course this is terrible because of course Trump is right. You can't allow this crazy people to have atomic weapons. You can't allow them. It's bad enough that this crazy dictator in North Korea has this atomic weapons. But have you heard? It was even a kind strange, but even funny when Trump kidnapped Maduro. What I think was not a bad action in itself, because Maduro he's a really terrible man. And then have you heard it? When Kim Jong-un heard about it, he changed the constitution, and now if they kill him or if they kidnap him, they are forced to begin an atomic war. Have you heard about
No,
it?
I didn't. No, I didn't hear that. No.
He changed the constitution in the moment when he heard that they kidnapped Maduro. He thought, oh, maybe this can happen to me, or they kill me. Or when they did it in Iran, and they have really a change in the constitution, and it's now in the moment when Kim Jong-un is kidnapped or killed, that's their obligation to start an atomic war. It's in the constitution now of North Korea.
And we talked about this before. It's this socialist thing and communist thing goes on and on and on, and no one. And like, for example, just today, I saw that the Secretary General of the UN wants $1.5 trillion every year to fight climate change. And human-caused climate change is bogus. That doesn't exist. I mean, I've talked about this on the show all the time. Climate change is real, but humans aren't causing it. That's a scientific fact. And no one wants to address that because they keep using this to get money. All we have all across the world is governments trying to get more and more money from their people.
I agree with this. They called it development aid in the past to like blackmailing the rich countries or the Western countries, people who have a bad conscience. Oh, we are poor, it's your fault because of colonialism and now you have to give it back. What is crazy? Because the United States, America was a colony, for example, and they became rich. Or Singapore was a colony, or Hong Kong and Vietnam, and they are successful today. So this is a crazy story. And then they call it development aid, and then they say, oh no, now there's a better topic. We call it help against climate change. And they give it for the stupidest things. I tell you the stupidest things that the European Union did. You can't believe it, but you can Google it and you see it's 100% correct what I tell you. They support wrestling in Uganda. Wrestling, this wrestling in Uganda.
Wrestling?
Wrestling, this.
Yeah.
How do you pronounce wrestling in Uganda.
Uh-huh.
In Uganda. And for what? They say it's against climate change we give this money. And then they ask, what has it to do with climate change? And then, yes, it makes people stronger, and if they are stronger, they can go better fight against climate change. Isn't it ridiculous? They give taxpayers money for wrestling in Uganda.
And we have that in the United States. We're paying people all the time to do the craziest stuff, so that doesn't surprise me at all.
But this was one of the good things that Trump did. So I criticized him, but this was good to stop a lot of this, what they call development aid, because it didn't help people. I wrote a book about it. It doesn't help people. It helps only corrupt politicians in these countries. It's even bad for these countries because the corrupt politicians stay in power. But now they made a new label, and the label is now help against climate change. But it's the same. It's all about the money, and that's a redistribution. Of course, totally socialist idea. So at this point, I agree with Trump. But in his, when he says, for example, tariff is the most beautiful word in the English dictionary. To be honest, this is totally crazy. It's the same thing. Someone would say taxes is the most beautiful word in the English language. It's also ridiculous because tariff is a form of taxes, and it is the same. Imagine someone would say taxes is the most beautiful word in the dictionary. This could only come from Mamdani maybe, or for Elizabeth Warren or this kind of people. I think they love taxes more than everything else.
Yeah,
I don't like taxes. I don't like tariffs. I don't like all of this stuff when the government takes away from us and from entrepreneurs.
And the terrible thing, if you ask me, is that I'll speak for a lot of Americans here. We understand that the government needs a certain amount of money to function, but they're taking so much more than they need, and then it gets wasted. I mean, that's my problem as a regular American citizen. Whatever I'm paying half of it just goes into the ether. It's going to wrestling in Uganda. It's like, and that's crazy.
Yes, I agree with you. I think the task of a government is for security. Inside with strong police, you need it, yes, rule of law, and outside against enemies that you have a strong army. This
Right.
is what you need, what the government, I agree. I don't agree when some libertarians say taxes are always theft. No, you need some taxes, but much less than it's today.
Right.
I think you could reduce it to maybe 20 or 30%. What
Oh,
it is.
I think you could run the American government on 10% taxes.
Yes, maybe and it's crazy. And the more they have, it's never enough. You can give them
Right.
more, they make more debt. And the story is that they only, because on the elections, yes, then they have to give some to the lobbyists, and then to bribe some voters to promise them something. First they take it in a way, and later they say we give you something back with redistribution. It's so bad in Europe, and I think the United States are also on a. If you see the debt, it's impossible. No one talks, and I don't know whether it's true. They say all this huge debt now in the United States, 30% is made from Trump. And I know the Republican Party as a party for financial discipline. I have a friend in the United States, maybe you know him, Grover Norquist. So
oh yeah, of course I know.
Grover.
Yeah,
he's a good friend of mine. He's from this Americans for Tax Reform, and he was, he worked together with Reagan and so on. This is the time. You're the same age as I, but I look a little bit back to the time when there was Ronald Reagan, and when America was great, and when he reduced taxes, and also people like Arnold Schwarzenegger came, and so the American dream, think big. You have it also today. I think the American dream is not dead. You see it with Elon Musk coming from South Africa, creating PayPal, becoming millionaire, becoming billionaire, becoming trillionaire, or the same Sergey Brin, who came from the Soviet Union and founded Google, for example. You have a lot of these great stories today. A lot of really good people, but not the politicians. This is a problem. You have a lot of great entrepreneurs in the United States. I think the best in the world, but not the best politicians. And we in Europe don't talk about this. We have not so great entrepreneurs. We have only great regulation and bureaucracy. To come to an end, I tell you something about my topic now with this book, New Space Capitalism. Elon Musk alone launched 165 rocket launches he had last year. This is more than all countries in the world together.
Right.
We in Europe, with our bureaucracy, had 8.
Yeah.
8.
Uh-huh.
And it's ridiculous. 8 launches. And he has 20 times more. Even another company, Rocket Lab, it's founded by a New Zealander, Peter Beck. They had also 21 rocket launches, not so many as SpaceX, but 3 times more than Europe. But we have a lot of regulation, and they are very proud from our European Space Agency to have a certificate for gender equality in space. So gender equality.
Oh, yeah, of course. That's right.
They're very proud about this, to have
Right.
a certificate. And we in Germany, they're very proud. They have a program how to bring disabled people in a wheelchair to space, but we have no rockets to do it. So this is crazy.
That is crazy. That's crazy. So, Rainer, I told you I'd keep you to half an hour, so it's half an hour. So I'm going to let you go.
But we can have more if you like. I know.
Here's your book. Here
Yes.
it is. I put it on the screen.
That's great. And we can have, I like to talk with you. And if people, sometimes I don't know, maybe people think he has to, I don't know whether we have hardcore Trump fans, and I want to apologize if I said something.
No. Don't you apologize. No, we're here. I want your opinion. That's why we're here.
But I'm a foreigner, and maybe I have not the right to. But American politics is, of course, important for the whole world. It's not
correct.
only America who's affected.
And I'll just tell you, just in 25 words, Trump has his faults, but right now he's better than the alternative. That's the way I put it. So
yes, I understand the alternative. If you see Mandami or so, it's crazy. He want to make America a communist and even maybe an Islamic country or something.
Yeah.
Like this. I think he comes also from Uganda.
Yes, he does. That's correct.
Yes, like where we give the money for the wrestling against climate change. This is a good thing, so you have to keep it in mind. Wrestling against and we give also from Germany. We gave a lot of money to Peru to build for bicycles. So how do you call it? Not highway, where they can drive the bicycle.
Right.
How do you call it?
I know, bikeway. I don't know.
Bikeway. Yes,
yeah.
We gave millions and millions and millions, and then there was a report, and so where there's only such a yellow painting, so but no one used it, and
right.
I know all this is in the pockets of corrupt people. Yes,
that's right.
And even we gave in Germany money for gender training in China.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's a great use of money.
Yes, and people in Germany have a lot of problems, and they think about how to cut for pensioners, and then at the same time they give money. And we are world champions in Germany. I can tell you, we give 30 billion euros. It's a lot similar than $30 billion.
Yeah,
billion every year for the so-called development aid. And the United States had a similar number. Now they reduced it. So we can be proud in Germany to be #1 world champions for throwing money for all this crazy things. So you see, I don't criticize only American politics, but for even more what we do here in Europe. It's crazy.
And Rainer, the problem here is I mean we didn't even get through a third of my questions. So I think we have to have
we can do it 2 times a month. If you like it, I like it. Let's make the next point, and we can talk about everything. Today, my girlfriend is waiting outside and says, you have always these talks. I have 6 interviews today. Now I have to spend some time with her. Otherwise, I have a good time with you, but a bad time with her. I don't want this. Okay.
I appreciate it.
Have a great day.
You too. Goodbye. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
See you.
Our thanks to Rainer Zitelemmann there for joining us. Right after the Jimcast now, we're going to be talking to Ralph BISCEGLIA. He's the CEO of the American Transit Insurance Company. He insures most of the drivers, the taxi drivers in New York City. And we've already taped that, and it's mind-boggling. Well, he said, I asked him, how do you make a profit? He said, we don't. So anyway, this is the Jimcast for the week of June 25th. And on that note, the transportation in New York City, I thought, and this is basically, I talk about stuff you don't really see in the news, more or less. It's in there, but you won't most people don't find it. In New York City, Mayor Zoran Mamdani's plan for free bus service was based on a project thing they did in Kansas City, where they had free bus service for 3 years until a couple weeks ago when they had to can it because guess what? They ran out of money. Yeah, you know what Margaret Thatcher said about socialism, about communism? She said, yeah, sooner or later you run out of other people's money. And that's exactly what happened. So, I don't know. They started charging. In Kansas City for 3 years, they had free bus service, and now they decided they can't do it anymore. So, because they can't afford it. Just thought I'd bring that up. And so, BISCEGLIA, we'll talk about that after we're done here. I've been talking about this thing about the missing scientists in Albuquerque, New Mexico here for months. I was on this way before anybody of the mainstream press picked it up. Now, if you've been following this little saga, and some of it's been overblown and exaggerated, according to the press, the mainstream press, they've included 14 people in on this supposed scheme. Now, I've said this before, but I have to, it really bears repeating. At least one of those people has no business being there at all. The guy in Princeton who got shot, he was shot by a colleague, and they know who did it. They know why he did it. It was professional jealousy, apparently, or something like that. And he had, The only reason he got on the list is because what he was working on, which was nuclear fusion. But there's no mystery to his death. There isn't. Now, of the 13 people that are left, about half of those people you could pass up to coincidence. The only real thing here that's really disturbing are the 6 people who went missing from Los Alamos Laboratory and they all live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And they were headed by General McCaslin, whose body has still not been found. His wife has said she's starting to think he might have went off into the desert to kill himself, because apparently he was starting to exhibit cognitive decline. But that's still that is still all up in the air. And then there's even the thing about, are they releasing that as misinformation? Well, here's the deal. So Melissa Cassius was an office administrative worker at Los Alamos, and she went missing. And also, this is very important, her husband is a scientist there, so they both work at the facility. She went missing 11 months ago, and there's cameras that tracked her. She dropped her husband off at work, and she told her daughter later that she had to go back home because she forgot her badge. But that's not true, because her husband said she had her badge because she needed it to drop her off to get into the gate. So the thing is, she took off from home and was never seen again until a couple weeks ago. They found her body. It's about 6 miles in the desert, about 6 miles from her house. And now they're starting to think. They found a revolver next to her. Her husband owned a bunch of revolvers, but she didn't own any. And her daughter said she had she never shot a pistol. She didn't know how to do it. There seems to be some evidence now that this was staged as a suicide, but it was actually foul play. And this was reported originally about the fact that she left both of her cell phones, both her professional Los Alamos cell phone and her personal phone, at home. And just before she left, she reset both of them. She wiped them. Now, it's a fairly easy thing to do, even though most people don't know how to do it. Most people have to Google the instructions on how actually to do it. It's not that hard, though. But here's the real amazing thing, and this just came out a couple days ago. She left her cell phones, but she took her toothbrush and her thyroid medication. Now, I suffer from fairly severe hypothyroidism. I understand how this works, because if you have hypothyroidism bad enough, if you go off your medication for like 5 days, you basically can't think anymore. Your mind becomes you end up with instant dementia. That's basically what happens. And she took those two things, which made everyone think that she did not have any plans on killing herself. And like I said, now they're starting to think that her death scene was actually staged, that she was actually done in by a third party, and they attempted to make it look like suicide. This is really, really crazy stuff. So there's 6 people who lived in Albuquerque who worked at Los Alamos Labs, and all 6 of them have gone missing mysteriously. If I'm correct, she's the first one whose body has been found. Then there's the Riza woman. Well, actually, she lived in Los Alamos, but this happened, if I'm right, in Los Angeles, about the fact that they were on one of the hiking trails in the Los Angeles National Forest, and her friends were 30 feet in front of her, and all of a sudden she stopped talking, and they turned around, she wasn't there. And they've searched. I've said this, and it's creepy, because there's only 2 possible things that could have happened here. She fell off the trail into a hole or something like that, or she was abducted by aliens. Those are the only 2 things that could have happened. I mean, she went missing in literally less than 15 seconds, and no screaming, no call for help, nothing. She's there. Her 2 friends didn't actually see her disappear, but she was there 1 minute, and 10 seconds later, she was gone. It's just the weirdest goddamn thing. So anyway, they found Cassius's body, and like I said, she took her toothbrush and her thyroid medication. That's not somebody who's planning on killing themselves. And also, then again, why did she not take her cell phones? And I'm not the only person who said this. The investigators have said this too. Her family said, "Oh, she was just an office worker. She literally, her job at Los Alamos was literally just to order office supplies." But she had a superior, and her superior had a classified clearance, and it's always assumed that the subordinates of the clearance people of the clearance know what's going on, that they know what their superior officer is doing. So the whole thing's just really, really odd. And here's another thing that's odd. Jesus. So the WNBA put out a poster for the 30th anniversary a few days ago. Caitlin Clark isn't on it. Caitlin Clark, who's only 3 years into the league, has superseded all the other records and has by far the best stats of anybody who's ever played in that league ever. And she's not on it. And meanwhile, just last night or the night before, I don't know if I think it might have been last night. This is I'm talking about Wednesday evening, the 24th. The Fever played, and who did they play? Was it the Pacific? I can't remember. But at any rate, one of the players actually punched her in the throat. And I'm not the only person that's to say this. So the thing is, so the WNBA hasn't made a profit in 30 years. They just got a big bump in pay, but I don't follow basketball enough to know this, but I've been told by people who do that beyond the 5 feet from the basket, these women can't shoot. They're terrible. They're terrible. Matter of fact, they've been beaten, if I'm right, more than once by high school boys. It's like, this is not, and so and it feeds into the stereotype of women getting along. I hate to say it, it does. You got in the NBA or the NFL, if you got a big star on a team, even if the other players don't like him, they realize, well, it benefits me. We win more people show up. The rising tide lifts all boats, right? That's the way the men think. The women, so Caitlin Clark is basically their meal ticket. There's a reason for the jump in attendance. They're the reason for the jump in television viewing. And so what do? They try to box her out. It's hilarious, and women are saying, "Oh, we're not that petty. We're not that petty." Well, all right, then stop. Don't do it. But no, they can't seem to do that. If the WNBA was left on its own, it would fold in 3 years. The only reason it's still running is because the NBA is propping it up. And it's like, come on, really? You're that freaking petty? They left her off the poster. I mean, I can't, in statistical terms, this woman is so much better than any other person who's ever played this league. It's not even funny. I mean, she's the first person in the WNBA who could possibly compete in the NBA. Maybe not, but it's from a shooting percentage, maybe, and so, what, they hate her. They hate her. It's just hilarious. On June 25th, Rockstar Games is going to release Grand Theft Auto 6. Now, I don't know if you're a game player. I don't know if you know anything about this. Grand Theft Auto 3 was released in 2001. It was basically the first three-dimensional open, what do they call it? Open world game where you could go anywhere. And in 2001, I was doing a public television show here in Minneapolis. And my director says, he's a young guy. Jeffrey says to me, he's like 26 at the time. And he says, Jim, come over to my house. I want you to see something. And I did. I went over there. And then he played the game in front of me, him and his friend. And it just freaking blew me away. I just didn't believe it. And he's pointing out all this stuff. Yeah, you can go anywhere. You can go into stores. It's like, it was mind-boggling. And now Grand Theft Auto 6 is coming up. But the reason it's on my report here is because the quote-unquote physical version, in other words, they have a boxed version of the game, and all these games previously have come on CD-ROMs. The physical version, the only thing in the box is a code to download the game. In other words, there's no physical version. The physical version is the actual piece of paper with a code on it. And there's no instruction manual. There's nothing. The previous versions apparently had instruction manuals with them, or at least that you could print out. It's just that's the only thing in the box is the code to download it. And there's a lot of companies who only carry physical games who aren't going to carry it because they're deciding that's not a physical game. So it's kind of, I don't know, I find that kind of fascinating. Anyway, I've seen the previews for this, and it has gotten to the point now where it's pretty much photographic. It's like this is the whole world is in there, and it's, I mean, the movements of the characters are still a little jerky, but in terms of the visual is pretty much photographic. It's gonna be that's gonna be interesting to see what happens there. And finally, I got two finalies here because I have to end on a kind of a somber note. Linda Cohen is she's a retired from Sports Center. She's been there 32 years or 37. I'm sorry, I didn't write that down, and I should have. She's been there a long time. She's basically one of the original crew. I don't know if she was actually literally a charter member at Bridgeport, but she's been there a long time. So she told a story about she was calling baseball, and I can't remember who her partner was, and she said one of her producers came up with an idea for a catchphrase. You know, everyone has a catchphrase for home runs, you know, and hers was, so let's say Mike Piazza hit a home run, and hers was, she said, Mike Piazza, master batter. And she said the next day she got called into the office by the exec producers there and said, "Don't ever do that again." They asked her, "Why in God's name did you do this?" She said, "I thought it'd be funny." And they said, "No, don't stop." And she only did it that one day. I thought that was pretty funny. And I hate to do this. I have to end on kind of a somber note here. Martha Zoller, the excuse me, radio host from Gainesville, North Carolina, passed away this weekend at 67, very suddenly. She was a guest on the show in the first 3 months we started. I ran into her at the Talkers Convention in June 23, and we started the show the next month. And I ended up sitting. I was arbitrarily assigned to sit next to her, and we had a wonderful conversation. That was terrific. And basically, we hung out for the entire conference. And so I asked her to come on the show, and she obliged me. And she was just a wonderful woman, and so she's going to be missed. She had just announced her retirement, and she did end up in the hospital, but they thought everything seemed fine. They thought she was just there for observation, and she had a heart attack and passed away. So our condolences to her family. In 26 seconds, you're going to hear from Ralph BISCEGLIA, the president and CEO of American Transit Insurance Company. We're going to talk about insuring taxicabs and Uber drivers in New York City. Here we go. Welcome back, everybody. Ralph BISCEGLIA is the chairman, chief executive officer, and president of the American Transit Insurance Company, and they insure 60 to 70% of the cab drivers in New York City. He's joining us now from his home on Long Island. Hi, Ralph. How you doing?
Oh, hello.
Well, I have to ask you before we even get started here. Well, first of all, I'm under the impression that the American Transit Insurance Company is a family business. Is that true?
Well, in a way, it is. It was started it was started actually in 1972. My father was involved in it. There was another partner of him, but since then, I believe I'm the only real family, the original family members that's left in the company right now.
And what did you start doing? Like, did you start in the mailroom or something like that, or?
Pretty close. I came in under IT. Before this, I was working in the technology, a couple different jobs, one of the universities out here on Long Island, and so at the time I came in 1988, they were just getting into computers, and they were using some consultants, and I came up to visit my father, and he said, introduced me to his partner. They gave me a little interview, and they said, "Oh, we can get this guy much cheaper than the consultants."
So I have to ask here right off the bat. I mean, a couple of days ago, basically a bunch of socialists were elected in New York City. And how's this going to affect your business?
Well, so far it's just for show. I mean, I haven't met the mayor yet. I expect to. We get into a little later about part of what we're trying to do with the city. We deal with doing these livery vehicles. That's the yellows, and also a bunch of the ride-hailing apps and the regular car services. We probably deal 60,000+ cars and probably 90,000 independent contractor drivers.
Ralph, I want to be clear on this. So, do you also insure the Uber and Lyft drivers?
Yes.
Not
all of them, but we have a good chunk of them.
Right. But everybody has to have insurance, obviously, to drive in New York City for other people, right?
Yeah, and these people, these drivers, regardless, they have to have this insurance to work. It's not like a personal auto where they can't take Uber to do Uber. They have to drive their own or their car, their lease. It's usually a lease car, which brings its own issues with it. But this is part of their enterprise, and it's a critical piece. The industry is doing. I think it's back. Pre-COVID, it was 1 million rides a day. It went down a little. Now it's pushing 900,000 a day again. So that's a lot of activity.
And you guys insure the vast majority of the drivers, right?
No, we have about there's about 100,000 of these diamond class cars, which is what encompasses these various car services and the hailing apps. And then there's 16 or 17,000 now of the yellows, and we're doing about 60% of that market.
Yeah. So you said you haven't met the mayor yet. Huh? What are your thoughts offhand?
Well, we'll see. I know he talks. Some of the things he says are disturbing. I don't know what kind of Muslim he is. Okay, whether he's the so-called moderate that doesn't want to kill everybody, or that remains to be seen. We know he's a socialist. Again, he hasn't really done anything in those terms, anything effective yet. The elections show really what he's up to, and he's consolidating his power and showing everybody that he's going to be the voice to reckon with going forward for this party, at least in this state.
And I mean, at least Manhattan was like 92% Democrat, right?
Oh, at least.
Yeah. So can you explain why there's the impression, and so tell me if I'm wrong about this, there's the impression that the driving industry or the chauffeur industry in New York City is highly litigious. Is that true?
Extremely. See, with our 60,000 cars or so, we process approximately 20,000 medical bills for no fault a month. Okay. And I would say like 30% of those are staged accidents. The rest, 60%, are exaggerating. Another 60% are exaggerated billings, because there's a system here that rewards this type of litigious behavior. Okay.
No, I've ridden in taxis in Manhattan There is the impression that you get as on a regular basis that these drivers seem to drive very recklessly but never get in accidents. That's obviously not true, right?
Well, I'll say it's truer than you think. If you had to drive the amount of hours they drive, the amount of miles they put on a car, over 80,000 a year, easy. All right, you would have a lot more. I would have a lot more accidents than them.
Yeah.
It's not. We found that even with during COVID, there was a drop off in incidents, and that stuck for a while. Yet our expenses kept going up because the the mechanism, the Trial Attorneys Association and the mechanism that game the system, they have this down pat, and it's a system problem. And if they suffer for any reason, if their income shrinks, they invent ways to prop it up, regardless of the number of incidents. They'll just invent what they need to invent.
Well, your publicist told me that your big innovation personally in this whole arena is going to blockchain. So can you explain? I understand how blockchain works, or maybe you want to explain that to the audience, but how does it specifically apply to your business?
Well, our problem with the drivers, see these drivers, and there's at least 150,000 active drivers because the 100,000 plus cars, they're on the road for multiple shifts. Some say it's up to 200,000 drivers. These drivers are basically used, and I'll say it. A lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them are exploited. And between the big companies that take a lot of commission from them and the leasing companies that get them in these high maintenance packages, sometimes, a lot of times, the driver can't keep it up long enough, and he passes the car to an unknown driver. We have an incident when what happens in a court case or in any adjudication setting when you can't find your driver. The settlement usually goes against you, and is usually more expensive. And this is just one of the techniques. So what we want to do is we want to first of all focus on the true owner operators, the individual owner operators that may should be owning their permits, and there's other issues there, but we want to put them on credentials. We want to create these what we call risk groups, convert our producers, our brokers, and other people to be agents for the drivers and run these risk groups. Put it on the blockchain. We have developed a method to pay our commissions to our agents or brokers in a way that they can use to record constant contact and other services that they're doing with the credentialed drivers to basically keep their credentials refreshed. Also, through smart contracts to begin to bring other services to those risk groups so that the agents can partake and get a little commission off that. You see, one of the problems is because this is a very high transaction environment, it's hard for a broker or an agent to do the KYC, to afford to do it based on just simply insurance commissions. So we're trying to get this commerce platform going for the industry to help bring in that revenue and give the driver something to protect, something to have a stake in.
Ralph, what percentage of the drivers own their own cars?
Well, not really a lot. Most of them are leased.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And like I say, the leasing, if they do an individual lease, it's one thing, but that's the lower percentage. The higher percentage are leased through these leasing companies that really, sometimes the leasing companies own the permits, sometimes they own the car and the permit, and they lease it or rent it out to the drivers. Again, the problem there is that once a car is financed, it has to be on the road. They don't give these drivers a lot of margin. They don't give the vehicles a lot of margin. So this is where we run into that problem where the car is in constant use. I mean, we've had people during the COVID who took the car off the road. They said, "Oh, it's off the road for COVID," and then yet a year later we have accidents filed against the car. Okay,
Yeah.
because they need to get it out to pay, the financing on these vehicles.
This wasn't in my research. This is just something I kind of knew, or tell me if I'm right about this, that the permits cost a lot. Like the permits are to the city are like six figures, right?
Those are the medallions. Historically, the medallions, when I first came in '88, the medallions were going for 2.25, 225,000.
Mm-hmm.
Today, I think because of the crash after they went up, they were inflated up to $1 million at one point.
Holy shit! Really?
Yes.
How in God's name could anybody make a profit at that?
Well, under that circumstance, and even earlier on, at that price, it wasn't about the profit. It was inflated for a couple of reasons, one of which they were routinely financed to protect them from lawsuits. And then once they're financed, of course, the finance company says, well, why don't you borrow a little extra on it? So there was that. There was also, I believe that for a good number of years, the immigration situation, I think the EB-5 program was they were allowed to use these enterprises and price them at $500,000 to get economic citizenship. So they were being used for that. It did what I'm saying is that it hasn't for a long time been a function of the actual vehicle's ability to earn. After they crashed, now I understand they're down close to 100,000. And that's probably only because there's a legacy financing. There's a large hedge fund out of Connecticut that owns 4,600 of them, and they're running a base to actually put these cars out on the road and recoup some of their. I think they settled. There was some money thrown at them in this reorganization. I think they settled at around 175,000 at that time, but it's not even sustainable there. The other cars, they're on what they call these diamond permits, and they're not really owned. They're licenses. So there's an underground market among drivers where they call it selling their plates. They'll pay $5,000 for a set of plates to get out there.
Ralph, is there a finite number of medallions like liquor stores? There is, huh?
Yeah, well, and also these diamonds. Like I say, right now, I believe the medallions grow slowly. When I first came, they were around 11,000, I think, 775, and now they're up to about 17,000. They were higher years ago. The medallions have been around, I think, since 1937. They're fixed number in all that time, and plus now with these other diamonds, which when the rideshare or ride-hailing companies came in, they ran those up to over 100,000. They capped those in 2018, even right before the capping, the TNC, the major TNC, they capped by themselves because they found that oversaturating, they weren't able to promise the drivers a good enough wage if there's too many cars out there, more than the demand. Now,
right. So I have to stop you. I have to ask you. So
sure.
the Uber and Lyft drivers, this doesn't apply to them at all, right?
No, they have this. So in other words, the Ubers and the Lyfts, they don't own the cars. They don't own the permits.
Uh-huh.
However, they're involved in the process. It's a sort of a convoluted process that links a driver to a car with insurance to the permit. And a lot of times it's a straw man driver because you have fleets that are trying to put a fleet together. And what they'll do is they'll put together they'll go out and buy a bunch of cars or finance them, put together a bunch of these lease packages, and they'll set a price on it. They'll come to us, get our price. They'll bundle it all together. Then they'll go to one of the TNCs and say, this is my package for drivers. And TNC looks at it. If he thinks he can sell it to drivers, he says, okay. If not, he sends them home and says, do better. But eventually they see something they like and they say, sure, I'll send you 500 drivers next week. So they're deeply involved in this process. Also, too, with the medallions, the thing about the medallions, they were, when they first started, they are still the only car in New York State that's allowed to pick up street hails.
Mm-hmm.
In return for that, they were not supposed to. It was illegal for them to have any two-way communications with the cars. In the old days, they were radio dispatchers, so they were not allowed to dispatch because the theory was they wanted them out on the street so people
Right.
were convenient.
And I want to make certain we get that straight too. So the Uber and Lyft drivers cannot pick up a person on the street waving, right? They have to actually do a call or do it through an app. That's the difference, correct?
Right. Yes, but now, since this crash of the medallion price, they are now letting the medallions use those apps as well.
All right. Your business sounds so complicated.
Well,
God,
it's convoluted. The interests are easily identifiable. It's just convoluted. It's hard to get them aligned, and that's what we want to use the blockchain for. You see, one of the curious things about this, and in a city where they really tout what they want to do for the working class and everything, in these situations with these fleets, now you have a fleet that may own 1,000 or more cars. They have the permits, they finance the cars, and they put them out on leases. When that business owner, even though they cannot sell those permits individually, when they sell that business, the permits are transferable to the new entity, so they can monetize it at that particular point in time.
Right.
Individual drivers, on the other hand, who also have acquired permits before there was capping. And by the way, the capping and the limited supply is what makes it perfect for the blockchain. It's the built-in scarcity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, and anyway, these drivers who do acquire it, and they acquired it with the intention. There were programs where what they call lease to own. You go through a lease for 3 years, and now you can apply for your own permit. And this was before the capping. The city would just issue the driver a new permit. They wouldn't take it away from the leasing company that he started with. But then when the capping came, that whole incentive went away. But anyway, those drivers that do hold these permits, they cannot transfer them. This is what they do. They do an underground business of selling plates. They'll pay money. A driver will pay money for these plates just to be able to get out there on the road and make a living without any real guarantee that he can go back to the TLC and re-register it in his name. Okay. So it's a situation that we think that if we are able to create these risk groups, credential the drivers, do other items on the blockchain, such as make leases transferable. Okay, so they're not breaking leases when they can't afford them and then driving with unknown drivers and things like that. Doing things like that on the blockchain, we could have this similar infrastructure that allows them to monetize and actually, buy and sell these permits among themselves to other qualified drivers. The key here is just to get the TLC to recognize the blockchain credentials, number one. And then this is where we'll be trying to talk to the Mandami administration about the potential of them putting these diamond permits in a registry and us making NFTs that represent them. And that's what would be transacted on the platform.
We should point out to the viewers too, the TLC is the Transportation and Licensing Commission, correct?
Yes, it's the Taxi and Limousine Commission. That's their.
Yeah. Right.
That's,
all right. I got one more question here. This is really ballpark, but I have to ask it. Is it hard for you to make a profit?
We've never made a profit.
Okay. All right. Well, that's an interesting admission. Everyone's getting paid now.
No, we have a love-hate relationship with the regulators. We love them; they hate us.
Yeah. Oh, you do love them, huh?
Well, we have to.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I mean, the impression is that everything in New York City is overregulated. So I don't know. That seems to be the impression for the longest time.
Well, this is a New York State issue. The Department of Financial Services, which was created when they combined the banking department and the insurance department, they oversee us. They oversee the financial health of the company. Now, we have issues with them, but they can't do anything with us. They would love to see us go away, but no major.
Hold on. Why would, I mean, that your industry needs insurance. Why would they love to see you go away?
Well, because we fight the fraud too much, for number one, and we don't.
Oh, they'd actually rather have it just go under the table, kind of.
Oh, sure. Well, who gets this money is some of their major donors are in those organizations, and they're protected. The problem is also the problem is there's so much of this pressure, from these exaggerated claims and these other types of behaviors, and they're all systemic. What the governor is doing today or recently with the going after staged accidents and going after trying to change the law with respect to comparative negligence having some bearing on whether or not you're allowed to actually make money off a claim or actually receive a settlement. These things are very tip of the iceberg. They're primarily for show. I can't see a judge looking at a comparative negligence report. They're very subjective, and then telling someone, oh, you can't, you can only sue for half of what you're asking for, or something like that. It won't happen. They'll think of any method to give a waiver or an exception, and that's the way it is.
But they must realize, though, I mean, this is just simple economics, that if there's more fraud there is, the more you have to raise your rates and the more people are paying, right? I mean, isn't that just basic?
Well, but the judiciary, they all they know is 60% of their activity in the civil courts in New York City is no fault. Okay, 60%. So that's takes up a lot of space that isn't going to tenant landlord disputes or domestic disputes and things like that. So it generates a lot of fees. We have arbitrations. A lot of them go to arbitration, and I'll give you an example why it's systemic. Before COVID, we would have quarterly filing fees with the American Arbitration Association at around $500,000. This is just the fees to get the cases on their whatever they call it, their calendars or dockets. When COVID hit and courts closed down, everyone went remote. That throughput through that system went to $2 million a quarter. Okay, it never came down.
Yeah.
Okay, so a lot of people are making money off of this, and at that volume, they're not even looking at these cases. Okay, they're just and they gear the system. They over the years they have various rules. Oh, if you keep it under $5,000, it gives you this advantage or that advantage, and so they'll take a $25,000 thing and they'll break it up into smaller pieces. They'll do anything they want to game the system. That's what I'm saying. what you see in the newspapers about the stage accidents and going after criminals and that is one thing. We did in the past 5 years, we've probably done about $500 million in RICOs. Okay, in 24 alone, we had one case, which was 150 million. We got 80 million walk away from that on no fault alone. Okay, now these cases, that's all we ever get is a walk away. We didn't get nothing that changes behaviors, and they don't care because most of it's bogus anyway. They just make up new ones and they game the system. And so even if there are less incidents, which there are per car over the past several years, the expense still goes up because it's not about it's about the system. So you can chase them all you want. And besides, even in the system, they're very creative. They don't do anything the same. Sometimes it's durable medical goods. Sometimes it's these pain creams. Sometimes it's excessive physical therapies, arthroscopic surgeries that are unnecessary. It's all mixed up. And it's very hard to go after and to think you have the answer by looking at single cases.
Mr. BISCEGLIA, I do not envy you. It just sounds, it just sounds like some vast, glorious mess that you're involved in.
Well, listen, I have 400 people that work for us.
Yeah.
I
bet you do.
Most of them are city people, live in Brooklyn, Bronx. A few of late that have gone into semi-retirement and have relocated, and then they're working remote. But for the most part, it's a New York City company with New York City people, and you should hear these conversations sometimes between the staff and the clients.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah. Hey, thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate this. This has been very, very illuminating, and God bless you. Take care of yourself.
It was a pleasure. I hope your listeners enjoyed it.
Yeah, I hope so too. I did. I'll tell you that.
We'll enjoy it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ralph. We'll see you.
Okay.
That's our show for this week, everybody. I want to thank Rainer Zitelemmann from Germany. Pretty amazing, isn't it? We actually got a good connection there from Berlin. And Ralph BISCEGLIA from Long Island for joining us. And we're taking next week off for the July 4th holiday. We'll be back on July 9th. Excuse me. On July 9th, our guests are going to be Paul Blake Smith. He's the UFO researcher. This is going to be his fourth book is coming out the day before that. I'm very honored he decided to spend. We were one of the first places he decided to go. He actually asked us. That was very nice because he's a fantastic researcher. The book is about the UFO crash in Cape Girardeau, Missouri in 1941. It predates Roswell by 6 years. It was basically the first kind of documented crash in America at that time. And then also joining us is our old friend Think, who's going to talk about quantum computing and AI. That's going to be on July 9th. So, and as you notice here, I'm going to talk about this when we come back on July 9th a little more about the fact we've gone to once a week now. So that's what's going on. So at any rate, I want to thank you folks for watching. We'll be back in a couple weeks. You take care. Good night, Uncle Donnie, wherever you are. Good night to you, wherever you may be. Have a nice week, folks. We'll see you.